I'm about to give you the full guide to cutting people off. Backstory is when I was 19, I had no other option. I had to cut off my friend group. 2 years later, I came back a completely different person. First, we have to start with when to cut people off and when not to. The backstory is pretty much that I continuously left a event with similar people and had a repetitive feeling of tension. And when you look at your life, you need to ask yourself that question of how do I feel when I leave after being in certain environment or around certain individuals? When you are aware of the feelings, the energy, the mood that gets created within your heart from your actions, you start to learn. You begin to change. You begin to see that you can break the pattern. You can say no to things because you're ready to do something more, something better. Also, in relation to cutting people off, not all relationships can be expected to be the same. You need to kind of step back and see what's the nature of this relationship. For example, you and a cashier. You don't need to cut off a cashier, right? It's a transactional exchange. But then there are deeper relationships in your life where it's supposed to be filled with depth. And if it is a shallow tit for tat, back and forth, like a battle, like a game that's lost its joy and fun, then there's no game anymore. It's just pettiness. So we have to get good at kind of understanding, is this relationship necessary? What is the fruit of this connection or relationship? Right? You really need to learn who to be what with and when to do what. You're not going to say the same things to every person, right? You have to meet people where they're at. But that also is taking into the context of you understanding where you're at. And a trap is mindlessly being reactive and cutting people off. You don't always cut people off. You do it on an occasion where your life is screaming at you. Your heart is ready to explode. You can't cut people off because you had one argument or they said something that triggered you emotionally. There are going to be relationships in life where they challenge you, but that is hard. And in being challenged, you get stronger. So you don't cut people off who challenge you, right? You have to be able to discern, to really feel in your heart, is this a toxic, broken relationship? Or is this sometimes a tough iron sharpens iron relationship? You do cut people off when they're continuously toxic, petty, living in low frequency all the time. For example, if you come into contact with someone and it's so repeatedly predictable that they are going to be complaining or blaming you or attacking you, then that's when you start to ask the questions which may lead to a clear decision of this just isn't for me anymore. So that's when you cut people off. A great example is I had a relationship in the past where it was my girlfriend, but it was like we were always fighting. And I don't blame her, I don't blame me. We both were not taking responsibility for our own insecurities, for our own reaction. So you kind of have to be terribly honest with yourself about, a girlfriend is a bigger relationship in your life, but that is even more important to cut off if it's affecting you every day. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's going to be these fundamental, foundational relationships that you realize, man, this thing's turning sour. It's bitter. It's not even bittersweet. It's just bitter. Now let's make the how to cutting people off very simple. One option is there's no explanation needed. You've tried to explain it time and time again. They don't get it. The words go in one ear and out the other ear. That's when there's no explanation needed. When you can feel that the space isn't there for you to be listened to, where your words would just be kind of unheard, that's when you kind of just cold turkey walk away. For me, it was really about walking away because I couldn't do it anymore. I got to that sick of being sick and tired state. And you have to ask that question for yourself too. What is driving my feelings around this relationship right now? Because you cannot just look at symptoms only, but we have to look at the root. And certain relationships, they're going to challenge you, they're going to break you down, and you being broken down is going to propel you forward because you kind of have a new chip on your shoulder. Sometimes life works like that. Sometimes you're purified through the flames. I think the distinction here is that when you walk away, you have to build yourself in a new way because you're leaving something which was a illusion of security. And now you're getting rid of security. You're breaking the patterns. That's going to be hard, but it will be invigorating. It'll make you stronger, but that means you're going to have to be intentional with how you use your time. You're going to have more time. And that could be a double-edged sword if you just kind of repeat the same patterns from that relationship in different forms. You have to learn to let go and move on to new avenues, to different activities, to new ways of living and guiding yourself and being guided. Personally, after walking away from my kind of broken relationships, I had exactly what I said: way more time, way more energy. I cycled that into making 15K coaching and building the brand. Really, that also inspired my spiritual growth too, in terms of that time, that new time garnered from subtracting useless activities. It leaves you with a clear question. What am I to do now? The cool thing about getting rid of broken, empty aspects of your life is that whenever something ends, there's always a new beginning. Tough part is you probably won't be able to see the new beginning immediately as the thing is ending. That being said, you will notice that the right people find you at the right time. For instance, when I cleaned up my life, the right coach stepped into my life, a wonderful business partner stepped into my life, and new career opportunities were opened in my life. I didn't have expectations or visualize this exactly. I just knew that where I was and what I was doing needed to change. So sometimes it's tough. You're going to have a lot of uncertainty around change, but you really need to look yourself in the eyes and ask, what's better? Do I take a risk or do I just stay where I'm at? And sometimes it's going to be very hard to jump off that cliff into the abyss of the unknown. But if you don't take a risk, you're probably going to end up with regret, wishing that you took the risk. So take risk, but do your best to know that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's as you take risk. So essentially, when we talk about risk, we're also looking at what to do with the new time and energy and space that you've created through removing unnecessary things from your life. And very practically, you renew your habits in your lifestyle. You have paper and pen and you write. You also get clear on what matters to you most. Straight up, what are the pillars? For me, maybe relationships, financial freedom, and health. What aligns with you? Look at your ikigai. What are you good at? What could you make money? How could you help people? Etc. Combine those win-win-win elements in your life. When you have excess time, excess space, it's important to be physically disciplined. You don't need to do what I do, but I've been working out 7 days a week for a while. Work out and eat good and have simple activities that fuel you. Maybe you play some chess. You write, you read, you go on hikes. That's not too shabby. You work out, you have one clear category of business, and you treat your business like a founder. You don't treat your business like a hobby. That means you understand every aspect of business, planning, clarity, terminology, organization, structure, research, simplifying the goal, understanding the main levers and actions that will get you to the goal. That's what you do with your new time. At least that's how I see it. The real point of cutting people off is to have new standards, to renew your life. Like what we were talking about, the wrong people, when you leave, the right people will enter. You have to have patience for this. You won't be able to go back to basic, shallow relationships. And that can be tough because they're everywhere, but all simultaneously, you'll continuously be reminded of what matters most to you. You'll start to see, like, each new day, as you're living a bit closer to your real destiny, to who you're actually meant to be, you'll feel the things that just kind of fall away. The expectations, the need to kind of say yes to things. You'll have a strength and a clarity around this actually matters to me. This actually invigorates me. One practical example for myself is around holidays. Like, I just do not have the fuel to go and do all this mingling with people. In the past, I was forced to do it or I had this expectation on myself. That's also another aspect of getting honest. You're so much easier to say no to things that you would otherwise just say yes to and then regret saying yes to. If you have any form of a kind of feeling bad about what we're talking about here, you need to see that staying and resenting people is much worse than honestly just creating the space for you to be free. This isn't about fitting in and hating where you are. It's about being honest. And if you're not meant to be somewhere, it's healthy to man up to yourself and others and just communicate. If this is hard for you, think about it like this. I left at 19, I came back at 21 a better person. When you look at your relationships, if you're just staying and there's there's just anger, there's friction everywhere, you need to learn to dissolve that or learn to leave. So you have that choice in front of you. It's all in your hands. But the bottom line is that if you just stay and you resent people, why are you staying, right? There has to be a integrity with yourself, the ability to just be honest with yourself.